Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Warner Brothers' claims about a bot-infested Snyder Cut movement don't really add up, from Paul Tassi of Forbes. Rolling Stone just published a massive article that goes into detail about a report that Warner Brothers commissioned to dig into the Release the Snyder Cut movement, the online campaign that did eventually get Warner Brothers to release Zack Snyder's full version of Justice League. The conclusion the piece draws is that the movement was helped by a large number of bots. My first thought on reading that was, of course, as any mass hashtag-based campaign probably is going to be, but reading the actual piece, the claims feel pretty overblown, and a lot of this feels like sour grapes on Warner Brothers' end from their dealings with Snyder and his fans. The main takeaway from the piece is that two reports commissioned by WB said that around 13% of Release the Snyder Cut movement accounts were bots. Well, that's more than double the Twitter average of 5%, though if you ask Elon Musk, it's more than that, and Elon is telling the truth. He's right. That they're basically using a false narrative to spread a false narrative. That still does not sound like all that much in context here. If 87% of the Snyder folks were real, that's pretty significant, and I don't think that warrants the takeaway that WB was duped into green-lighting the Snyder Cut with an inoffensially large fan base massively inflated by bots. That's really not what the data is showing here. What were they trying to show in the Rolling Stone article? That Zack Snyder funded and mainly manipulated this whole movement, and it was mostly him and his money and him manipulating this situation. Now, I'm not saying that he didn't push this whole thing. Of course he did. It was a self-serving situation. I don't blame him. I celebrate his tactics. He's a master tactician. But still, there is a huge fan base here that have made a lot of money for Man of Steel, Batman vs Superman, and Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. They were trying to say something extremely different. Of course they were. And the motivations are there to be seen. On the day of the release of the digital copy in the US, this was to show David Zaslav. That Rolling Stone article was to say to David Zaslav that the Snyderverse is not worth restoring financially because Snyder was behind the whole Snyder Cut movement, which isn't true. Because if they said there was 99% 9 bots, then you could understand what they were saying. But 13%? Come on. This isn't to say the movement is some paragon of pure fan love. The Snyder Cut folks can be absolutely brutal, certainly to WB execs, as mentioned in the piece, but I mean to essentially anyone that dares question the brilliance of Snyder's work, or even hint in that direction. I've done battle with them a number of times for extremely unconscious takes. It also very much seems like Snyder enjoyed this movement being built up around him and did wield it to apply pressure when he needed to. Again, why not? You've got to do what you've got to do, right? And it was masterful what he achieved with this movement. One quote in the piece credits him saying that he would destroy Geoff Johns and Jon Berg on social media unless their names were taken off the Snyder Cut of Justice League. He threatened, allegedly, to destroy them on social media using his fans. Isn't this a similar threat to what Geoff Johns made to Ray Fisher if he didn't get with the party and not fight against what Joss Whedon was doing with Justice League? He would ruin Ray's career. What's the difference? So, again, this Rolling Stone hit piece didn't have the balance to talk about the other side of things, or the positive side of the Snyderverse fandom. When they quoted Zack Snyder about all the great stuff we've done via the suicide prevention charity, they quoted him. But the journalist didn't ratify that by saying, I must admit there is a positive side to this fandom. No, because that wasn't the intention. That said, it's hard to fault Snyder himself for being pretty bitter. lest we forget what actually happened with Justice League. Snyder left the project to deal with an unspeakable family tragedy. It was given to accused harasser Joss Whedon, who both made a deeply bad movie and got in extensive confrontations with Snyder's friends and co-workers in the cast. And there are some very real issues with WB higher-ups during this whole process. See the Ray Fisher saga. And I think Snyder's position in the article is probably the correct one. That WB eventually caved not to the Snyder Cut movement, not because of the immense online pressure, but as a way to attempt to drive HBO Max subscriptions. Of course. Listen to me. HBO Max at the beginning, at launch, was a clusterfuck. They didn't do what D Plus did. They didn't have a Mandalorian to launch. They had nothing. Green Lantern Corps, which they've been developing for 2 or 3 years, should have been there on fucking launch. The House of the Dragon should have been there on launch. They should have had core content to launch, but they didn't. So in the end, they needed something. And Jason Kilar very smartly realized there was a fan base chomping at the bit. This was their thing. This was their launch pad. It was via their own bankruptcy that they needed the Snyder Cut in the first place, which is where the film premiered. They were trying to leverage my fan base to bolster subscribers to their new streaming service, Snyder said. Facts. He's clever. It's a messy situation, but I don't think the message being crafted here by WB's camp with this leak that turned into an article is doing them any favours. It's not. The claim seems to be that the Snyder movement was a few loud fans using a bot army to bully a major studio into releasing a cut of a movie. This is the conclusion the Rolling Stone piece draws. That means a fandom amplified by fake accounts helped shake down a major studio at an ultimate cost to Warner Brothers of more than $100 million. We're quoting the piece. To re-release a movie that had already bombed years earlier. Now, I'm sure the journalists will get into this. The $100 million they spent, did they lose it or did they make a profit? Again, I'll reiterate to you, I've seen all the figures. So the figures on HBO Max are the hugest for a streaming event ever. They won't admit it to you. Their minions in Access Media won't admit it to you. Do you realise how much money they made via the sponsorships that they have on HBO Max? The digital copies globally before they released it digitally in the US yesterday, massive money. The physical copy, massive money. It was sold out on release, as was the Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice IMAX edition as well. I couldn't get it for ages, as I've already mentioned. So they made more than $100 million by releasing the Snyder Cut. In reality, that movement, though often hostile, was very much mostly real people, and it's disingenuous to think that the Snyder Cut was released for any other reason. Besides, WB thinking it could earn them revenues and subscribers. Snyder may occasionally go a bit overboard with the social media power he wields, but he's not really wrong in terms of the genesis for how all this started and why it unfolded the way it did. The story WB is selling here just doesn't track. Let's press pause on this article for a moment. If you, Warner Brothers Pictures and Toby Emmerich, not Warner Brothers Discovery, because they opted out of commenting on this article, because I can tell you they support Snyder. Zaslav has spoken with Snyder, and it's very, very true that Zaslav is not far away from restoring the Snyderverse. And Deborah Snyder is on the list of applicants to be the new DC Studios president. I can exclusively tell you that today. But if they're saying a bunch of bots tricked them into releasing the Snyder Cut, what does that say about them? It tells them that they're a bunch of incompetent, bankrupt people that are stupid. So why would you admit that? It's like Amber Heard saying that social media influenced the Johnny Depp trial result. In other words, Amber, you're saying that your representatives are so incompetent that they were duped by a bunch of peasants. Think about what you're saying. When a group of people stand up, when the power of the people unite against injustice, what happened to Snyder was injustice. How we were treated as fans, how our movie Man of Steel was treated by Access Media, pundits, and hateful so-and-sos. That wounded us. We stayed quiet. the way they attacked BVS was more toxic than anything on any level that our fandom ever did. We stayed down and we stayed quiet. But when they did what they did to Snyder, when they lied about the death of his daughter being the reason that he left that project, we stood up because it was an injustice. And we won as a group of people, not a group of bots. We stood with a man and a woman who lost their child through suicide. If you've lost someone because of that, I'm sure you empathize with that situation. We stood up. It was right. The Snyderverse fandom are not bad people. I've had issues with my own fandom. I remember going against, was it Wonder Meg? And a lot of fans went against me. But I'm intelligent enough, to let it ride over my head. There's, we argue with each other sometimes. By the way, Wonder Meg, all is forgiven. Peace, right? Let's unite. Well, we have more power when we're all united. Us united, right? But that's why we stood up. That's why we've been so angry. What did Zack Snyder actually do wrong? You know what happens when you're different and unique? They call you a weirdo. They attack you because change and difference scares the masses. And massive companies and powerful conglomerates. What did he do wrong? He's an auteur director with a vision. And what a fucking vision. He made a modern day contemporary Superman movie, which people are starting to appreciate now. BVS, a contemporary superhero movie with a lot to say about the world today. And wow. And Zack Snyder's Justice League was just the beginning of his story. He thought about things. He gave us great art. What exactly did this man and this fandom do wrong? I do not justify the people putting, Jeff Johns, etc's pictures on severed heads. That is wrong. Death threats are wrong. But that's a minority. It isn't you and it isn't me. In reality, that movement, we've read that, haven't we? Yeah. So where are we? Sorry about that. Right. WB thinking it could earn that, blah, blah, blah. So basically what the journalist is saying here, he's not really wrong in terms, and basically it unfolded that way it did. The story WB is selling here just doesn't track, and that's factual. And that's the article. I actually finished the article without knowing it. Sorry about that. I'm not editing this bit out. We are going to continue with the show. So basically, the Rolling Stone article is disingenuous. It's a propaganda piece. It's a hit piece. It's just as bad as what Ben Fritz did with the Wall Street Journal all those years ago, because they were desperate then. Because we didn't know it at that time, but we were winning. We were throwing so much truth via Snyder and ourselves uniting together. They didn't want that movie released. They didn't want their mistake of shelving an absolute modern day classic CBM to be shown. They hate Snyder and us for making them do that. But it wasn't just us. It was John Stankey at AT&T who went against Emmerich and Warner Brothers Pictures. And Jason Keeler. And then John Stankey got even bigger revenge on Emmerich. He went and got David Zaslav to take over Warner Brothers as a whole entity. And now Toby Emmerich is out of a job, and this company is finally going to be run properly. And that's going to be brilliant, and that's going to be exciting. But the motivation of that piece yesterday, without question, was to, establish that the Snyderverse has toxic fans, a toxic director, manipulating and leading those fans, and that it won't make Zaslav any money. Why would Emmerich do that? Because the Snyderverse is about to be restored. Well, brilliant article here from a year ago, and journalist Sean Keane reposted it on Twitter because of what Rolling Stone did. So many great supporters with verified blue ticks yesterday supporting the fandom, supporting Zack Snyder, and this is great. So this is a great article from a year ago, you know, detailing what happened with the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. And I thought we could go into this because I never read this. Zack Snyder's Justice League ending explained, epilogues, cameos, and dangling plot threads. The 4-hour Snyder Cut of the DC superhero movie, now available to buy digitally, doesn't have any post-credit scenes, but it leaves you with plenty to chew on. It certainly does. Zack Snyder's multi-anticipated cut of Justice League landed on HBO Max in 2021, bringing the director's original vision for the DC superheroes to the streaming service. The film, which is now available to buy digitally, came out more than 3 years after Joss Whedon's 2017 theatrical cut disappointed fans and sparked a massive intense fan campaign, reportedly partially driven by bots, demanding the release of the Snyder Cut. I don't know, is this an old article? I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. It's also 4 hours long, so you better be sitting comfortably with plenty of snacks before you dive into Batman and Company's epic adventure. I can save you a little time by telling you there are no mid or post-credit scenes, as we've been conditioned to expect in superhero movies. Instead, the last 20 minutes or so act as an epilogue, and it's a brilliant one. I do love a good epilogue. We don't really get that in filmmaking. Let's take a look at what happens at the end of the film and mull over what it might mean for the future of the DC Extended Universe. Be warned, full spoilers lurk ahead, like a creepy clown, ha 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 ha. Scene 1, Deja Vu on Lex's lovely yacht. This scene might look familiar if you saw the theatrical cut. After stopping Steppenwolf from bringing Darkseid and the armies of the planet Apocalypse to Earth, our heroes go back to their lives and generally get happy endings. However, a guard at Arkham Asylum discovers some bald guy has taken the place of Lex Luthor, who was arrested at the end of Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, giving the supervillain a chance to escape. We find Lex, Jesse Eisenberg, go on a yacht where he's joined by Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke. Joe Manganiello, the mercenary, has a grudge against Batman. It seems the Bat was responsible for Deathstroke losing an eye, and Lex reveals that the Caped Crusader's real name is Bruce Wayne, so Deathstroke can kill the hero. Basically, just to interrupt for a minute, this was a tie-in for Ben Affleck's The Batman movie. Fucking excellent. This just teases you what an epic villain he was going to be in that movie. And they burnt it all down. And have we got anything better in the DCEU? No, we have not. What does it mean? This one is pretty straightforward. Batman and Deathstroke battle is about to get more personal. Alfred had better watch out. Lex also says he has more important things to do, possibly linked to the fact that he knows Darkseid is coming. What a scamp. This scene is also linked to the scrap Ben Affleck solo Batman movie, which would have featured Deathstroke as the main villain. It's a little odd to get a reference to a cancelled project, which has since been replaced by Robert Pattinson's movie. But this plot thread could be picked up somewhere down the line. A shorter, worse version of this scene played during the credits of Whedon's theatrical version. Lex suggests he and Deathstroke form a league of our own. To counter the Justice League, the new one sends Deathstroke on a more focused Batman murdering path, rather than just having him join a team of baddies or manage an all-female baseball team. There's still no explanation for Lex suddenly dressing like the Gene Hackman version of the character, though. You don't need an explanation. He's bald now. They cut his hair. He's going to keep it bald because we like Lex being bald, right? I still think that Smallville did the best thing. They gave Lex a reason for being bald, and a compelling one. Our Miles really created a new mythology for Superman in Smallville, and it works. Someone should grab hold of it. Maybe our Miles. Scene 2, a trip to the post-apocalypse. The final scene jumps into a dark, yucky future, which Snyder previously teased in BVS, in which Darkseid's forces have laid waste to Earth. However, there's still hope. Batman, Cyborg, the Atlantean Mera, Mohawk, Deathstroke, it seems he and Bats buried the hatchet, and Flash have formed a resistance group. And there's one more person, Joker, Jared Leto, who got an excellently creepy laugh that sounds like a creaky door. There's a ball of tension between him and the Dark Knight as he taunts Bats about the loved ones he's lost, his parents and his adopted son. When Batman warns Joker to be careful, the clown adds a little more dramatic spice. You need me to help you undo this world you created by letting her die, he says. Poor Lois, how she suffered so. Joker also wonders about the number of alternate timelines in which Batman has let the world be destroyed because he lacks the cojones to die himself. The clown gives Batman a Joker playing card that signifies truce between them. If Bat wants to renew their beef, he just needs to tear up the card. Now, I want to go back to a very, very interesting bit, right? The Joker asks him about all the alternate timelines in which Batman has let the world be destroyed because he lacks the cojones to die himself. Now, this is interesting because we know in Justice League 3, he will sacrifice his own life. So I thought that was very, very interesting. A great piece of dialogue there from Zack Snyder and Chris Terrio. Batman counters by revealing that Harley Quinn, the Joker's sometimes girlfriend, died in his arms, but begged Batman to give the Joker a slow death when he kills him. Batman also drops the F-bomb here because this post-apocalyptic scene about death and vengeance needed to be extra hardcore. Their plans, threats and profanity all seem to be rendered moot by the arrival of Superman back in his red and blue costume, whose eyes glow a sinister red as he prepares to get his laser on. Hope someone has a lump of kryptonite handy. They don't. Bruce wakes up with his apparent nightmare in his sweet lakeside pad in the present pre-apocalyptic world and finds Martian Manhunter Harry Lennox, I love Harry, outside the alien hero. Warns Bruce that Darkseid will be back looking for the anti-life equation and pretty much offers to join the Justice League. What does it mean? Lots to unpack here, but it sure does seem like a setup for some awesome sequels. Love seeing realities where the bad guys won. The Joker scene was the only new one shot for the Snyder Cut. Everything else was pre-existing footage. After I realised there will be no more Zack Snyder DC movies, my biggest regret was that there was no Batman-Joker confrontation scene, the director said in production notes. They both went through a series of films and never ran into each other. It didn't make sense to me, so I thought maybe I could remedy that. I want you to think about something what Zack did here, and he did it for us. And partially for himself. He fought the studio. He went against their wishes, as we read in the article yesterday, not to shoot anything new, but he did. And that scene's fucking amazing, gripping, compelling. And that director risked the wrath of the studio to do that for his fans as payback for what we did for him, standing with him in his hour of need. He's a beautiful guy. He's a great guy with a great soul, and I won't hear a bad word said about him. And of course, I'll be constructive in arguing about anyone who I'll say that again. I'll be constructive with anyone who wants to argue about Zack Snyder. Of course I will, because I am not a toxic person. The dark future scenes implies Darkseid returned to Earth in his hunt for the anti-life equation, a mathematical formula that would allow him to dominate all life, and took over. You might remember allusions to this around an hour and 40 minutes earlier in the movie when the Kryptonian ship warned Cyborg against activating the Mother Box. Now, I think in Justice League 2 or 3, the Riddler tries to work out the anti-life equation because that's perfect. The Riddler is a fucking genius. So the genius like the Riddler could definitely do that. At that point, we got a glimpse of a reality in which a dead Wonder Woman was being burnt on a funeral pyre, Aquaman had been impaled by Darkseid, and Superman was cradling a charred corpse with Darkseid looming over him, which basically was Lois Lane. We get confirmation that Lois Lane was the corpse, and her death left Superman emotionally devastated enough for the big baddie to dominate his will. It sure looks like Lois was killed by Darkseid's Omega Beam, Laser Eye Move 2, which makes Supes joining him extra nasty. He really should just punch Darkseid into the sun. We also don't know what role Batman played in Lois's death. Now, originally, Bruce Wayne and Lois were going to have some kind of romantic relationship. I don't know when this was supposed to be. Some people are triggered by this. If it's part of the nightmare future, I'm fine with it. Look, they were going to, he was going to, I think wasn't it going to be his child that she ends up having? I'm a bit confused with some of these leaks, but look, it's Snyder. It's interesting. I always like new takes on iconic material, only if they're good takes. Making the situation even worse is the fact that Lois is pregnant. We see a positive test in her nightmare during the movie. The situation is pretty similar to the one seen in the Injustice games, in which Superman becomes a ruthless dictator after Joker tricks him into killing a pregnant Lois and blowing up Metropolis. This is Snyder. he was actually implementing one of the most popular DC games ever, Injustice, and putting it in live action. Who else has the cojones to do that? Thank you, Zack. This epilogue also links the two moments in BVS, the Flash's warning, where future Flash uses his powers to jump back through time and warns Bruce to fear Superman, and the nightmare sequence in which Bruce dreams of a dark future in which Superman has gone bad. The events seen in the nightmare presumably take place after the jail scene, since Batman is alone, gets captured, and is ultimately murdered by Superman. It's not clear why Superman is wearing his red and blue suit again in the dark future. Surely the moody black outfit he wore after getting resurrected would have been a better option. In the comics, Superman wore a black suit specifically designed to help him absorb more solar radiation after returning from the dead. If that's the case in the movie, he didn't need it by the time of the dark future events. Exactly, you answered your own question. It also acts as a visual differentiator between the Snyder Cut and the theatrical versions of Justice League. In the years since the theatrical version filled fans with disappointment, Snyder has confirmed some plot details around the nightmare future. Flash used a cosmic treadmill, a time machine he activates with his powers to travel back in an effort to avert the dark future. When he sees BVS Bruce, he realizes he's gone back too far in the timeline since Bruce hadn't met Flash at that point. The scene at the end of Justice League presumably takes place before Flash goes back, and the team is likely preparing for his journey through time. Flash also appears to be wearing the armor from the Justice League epilogue when he warns BVS Bruce. Snyder told Vanity Fair his original plan was for the dark future timeline to be reversed, but Batman would die. The mantle would have been taken by Bruce Kent, the powerless son of Lois and Clark. It's unclear why Joker is necessary to undo this crappy future, or how Harley died. But it's entirely believable that the version of Batman would end the clown as soon as he can. He has no major issue with killing at any point in the timeline. Well, that's not true. I think at the end of BVS, he was definitely not wanting to kill anymore, but things have gone a little bit caca, right? So all bets are off. The adopted son line alludes to Robin's death at Joker's hands. You might remember seeing a graffitied Robin costume in BVS. This was intended to be the Dick Grayson version of the character. In the comics, Joker killed Jason Todd, the second Robin. Since there are no plans for more Snyder-led DC movies, it's possible this plotline will never continue, or it'll play out in the next year's Flash movie. It won't. It'll see Affleck as Batman again, along with Michael Keaton's Batman returning to the version of the character from the Tim Burton series, and Pattinson playing a completely new one in Matt Reeves' The Batman. We might also see Martian Manhunter show up in The Flash. I think we do. No, I don't think. I know. Oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. But, you know, I think it's been leaked anyway, right? My brain is sleepy now. Too much time travel and alternate realities. Wake me up when The Flash is out. Well, if The Flash is out. So, but there is another article here that I've just stumbled on for. This is a very interesting one. Zack Snyder's Justice League Messy Superhero Epic out now on digital. DC team up with Batman and Chums finally swings into digital stores after a fan campaign to release the Snyder Cut. Right, just to clarify this situation for people all over the world. Yes, I know you're getting confused because the Snyder Cut's been out on physical media and digital media for absolute yonks. I think you can get it physically in America, but you couldn't get it digitally because it was on HBO Max. So now, at long last, David Zaslav has decided as a measuring point to see how popular the Snyderverse is to release the Snyder Cut digitally. And that's what's happening. When DC's Justice League came out in theatres, it was quite different from what the original director intended. Zack Snyder's Justice League, aka the Snyder Cut, makes up for that, expanding the flick to 4 hours of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the Justice League fighting the good fight. The Snyder Cut was released on HBO Max in 2021, and now you can finally buy your own digital version of the 4-hour movie. Did I mention it's 4 hours long? And don't forget, Justice is Grey, the black and white version, is on there as well. Some fans thinking it's an 8-hour director's cut. No, it's the combined runtime of the original Snyder Cut, 4 hours colour, with Justice is Grey, the 4-hour version that's black and white. This extended director's cut in Snyder's re-edited version of 2017's Justice League, it's not re-edited. It's nothing to do with that movie. which was credited to Joss Whedon after Snyder stepped down midway through production due to a personal tragedy. 3 years later, Snyder dusted off the original footage, shot some new stuff, and then compiled it into a 4-hour cut, officially titled Zack Snyder's Justice League. This epic version was initially exclusive to HBO's streaming service alongside other Warner Brothers blockbusters and DC Comics spin-offs. But you don't need to subscribe to HBO Max, as you can also buy it on Blu-ray, disc, or as a digital purchase too. Like the theatrical version, Snyder's Justice League sees Batman recruiting superpowered chums, Wonder Woman, Aquaman, and the Flash to seek out their fallen super friend Superman and thwart an alien invader, superpowers and soul-searching in short. The biggest strength of this and all DC movies is the casting of the heroes. Gal Gadot's smouldering Wonder Woman, Henry Cavill's square-jawed Superman, and Ben Affleck's world-weary Batman all fill the comic book costumes perfectly. Alongside them, Jason Momoa, Ray Fisher, Ezra Miller give standout performances, breathing life into lesser-known characters. It's entertaining to spend time with this league of heroes, punching, posing, and bouncing off each other. Does this sound like the joyless, depressing affair that the other article mentioned yesterday? No, because they were lying. The fun relationships between heroes formed a large part of Whedon's rewrites in the version of Justice League that made it to theatres. However, a section of fans quickly rallied to reinstate the original director's vision with an online campaign to release the Snyder Cut, somewhere between a grassroots movement of comic fans and a flailing howl of harassment against critics and DC. The controversy around the Snyder Cut became a weird nexus in the online culture wars, recently complicated by allegations that Whedon engaged in on-set bullying and new revelations that a large portion of the released Snyder Cut campaign was driven by fake social media activity. Most of us are real. The victory is ours and Zack Snyder's, and that's all that matters. So yeah, this film comes with a lot of baggage, but life's too short to get into all that here. I'm not going to comb through the difference between the two versions either. Instead, I'm going to take a look at whether the Snyder Cut stands alone as a coherent storytelling experience. It's no spoilers to say the new cut begins with a recap of an earlier film, 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, which means you don't just have to cast your mind back to the Wonder Woman and Aquaman movies that have come since. But to be clear, the Aquaman movie is supposed to be set after that film anyway. You have to think back 5 years to an even earlier film in the series. Look, I forgive you for not remembering the specifics of what's happening or why Lex Luthor is hanging in some kind of CGI padding pool. In fact, I'll save you some trouble and tell you up front that Lex Luthor isn't mentioned again in the main plot of this film, so including him in the intro is just unnecessary and confusing. It's not confusing because as long as you've seen BVS, and I think if you're emboldened to watch the Snyder Cut, you would have seen BVS. Basically, it's just part of a kind of deleted scene. It's a gift to us, the fans. Don't worry about it. 10 seconds in, and I already have that annoying feeling, all too common in today's continuity-obsessed blockbusters, that I have to stop the film and check Wikipedia to figure out if I'm missing something. You really didn't have to do that, mate. All you had to do was watch the other movies. That murky prologue tells you very clearly right from the jump who this film is for. Are you intimately acquainted with the details of Zack Snyder's films? Welcome aboard. Are you the other 99%? Forget that. If they were going to watch this film, they would have gone and seen the other films because that's what this generation of moviegoers do. So your point is blunt. Of the movie-going public who kind of like the Wonder Woman movies and just want some superhero escapism, which sitting at home with only streaming services for company, screw you. Go watch Batman Forever, you poser. No, just watch Man of Steel and BVS. It's simple, really. You can tell this is serious stuff from the ponderous textural touches like Nordic villagers singing and omnibus songs or stark black title cards of flashbacks and dream sequences of multiple voiceovers from multiple dead dads. Nothing wrong with that. The Snyder Cut isn't meant to be fun. It's fun if you enjoy that kind of thing. Fun isn't, someone's just died, let's crack a joke quickly. Fun is enjoying a movie. Was it fun to see Gwyneth Paltrow's severed head in a box, right, at the end of 7? No. Did we enjoy it? The twist? Of course we did. The Snyder Cut isn't meant to be fun. It's full of serious people saying serious stuff. Admittedly, the theatrical cut stream of self-aware quips skirted dangerously close to ridiculing fans for taking this stuff even a little bit seriously. But there has to be some middle ground between Whedon's goofiness and Snyder's laden approach. No, it doesn't. When the Snyder Cut takes a stab at humour, it plays like someone who'd heard a joke once but didn't really understand why everyone was laughing. In this version, Ezra Miller's performance as the Flash is still a quirky highlight, but his dialogue often feels forced and weird rather than nerdy and endearing, when it wasn't that endearing in Joss Whedon's film. Anyway, I'm not saying the gags in Zack Snyder's Justice League are hilarious. It's just a moment to breathe in the movie. This isn't a fucking sitcom, so get over yourself. Maybe if you didn't force the guy, because I think this is the lighter version of the Snyder Cut, because there are several versions, right? I don't think this is the big idea that he was talking about, but I still think it's his vision and everything. But he was forced into having some gags. A superhero movie doesn't have to have any gags, as far as I'm concerned. You can tell this is serious stuff for blah blah blah. We read that. All this adds to the inflated runtime. Oh, here we go. I, for one, am happy to spend this time fighting crime with each and every one of the Caped Crusaders, but the film is also bloated. Yet bloated is a kind of thing they use these days, critics, when they haven't got the concentration to sit there watching a movie. Who are you to say what should be in a movie and what shouldn't be in a movie? With countless fripperies, any responsible editor would trim without a moment's hesitation. This wasn't down to the editor. This was a director's vision. We know this is an extended director's vision. A director's cut cannot be bloated. We probably didn't need Commissioner Gordon in a subplot about Batman being suspected kidnapper. That's then completely forgotten, or a recurring theme about poverty and eviction that connects to absolutely nothing. It absolutely does connect to something. This is where you don't understand it. You critics and pundits don't understand film. The reason we're focusing on Cyborg, seeing this poverty-stricken woman, is because we're seeing the power he wields. And instead of using that power for darkness, which he could easily do in his state of mind at that moment, he uses it to help that woman who's been turfed out. You really don't understand poverty, do you? Or what Snyder's trying to do here. Maybe you're rich or something, right? When one of the heroes is literal billionaire Bruce Wayne, and we really didn't need a scene that's just Alfred showing Wonder Woman how to make tea. Again, you people moan about lighter moments. That was a lighter moment. Who are you to say we didn't need it? It's a moment of lightness. I like that scene. I think it's good. Get over yourself. Yet despite its length, the Snyder Cut presents nothing meaningful or significantly new. For an example of how a re-edited version can deepen a story, look at Blade Runner. The fabled director's cut added fascinating nuance and ambiguity to the question of whether the hero was human, genuinely adding an extra dimension to the film, even if you'd seen it before. Actually, the Snyder Cut gives that dimension and a lot more than that as well. But you can't be bothered to admit that. But the far-out Snyder Cut of Justice League feels like essentially the same movie, oh my god, as the 2-hour theatrical version, just longer. At times it feels less like a story and more like a free-roaming video game where you wonder about the DC Universe interacting with non-playable characters. No. You don't get it, that's it. And don't even get me started on the tacked-on mini-movies designed to set up sequels that will never come. These throw a bunch of fan-pleasing DC characters at the wall and look cool, but are frankly incoherent nonsense. No, it's not incoherent. If you understand his other films, then you wouldn't be saying that. Either you haven't seen Man of Steel or Batman vs Superman, or you choose to ignore them. In other words, you're another MCU shill who doesn't understand the vision and depth. Go back to those theme park rides, as Martin Scorsese calls them. On the plus side, a couple of plot strands are broadened through the film with varying degrees of success. The expanded story lends heavily on Fisher's Cyborg, which is good because he has an intriguingly conflicted relationship with his superpowers that make him hands down the most interesting character on the team. Conflicted relationship with his superpowers. Actually, it's his father he has a conflicted relationship with. I don't think you saw this film, did you? We also learned that villain Steppenwolf is an underlining to a cosmic conqueror named Darkseid. In theory, this could add some fun nuance. The Marvel movies, here we go, he's a Marvel shill, I told you! how villains can be developed as personalities with relatable conflicts mirroring the dilemmas faced by the good guys. The MCU villains, apart from Thanos and Loki, have been crap. Just see, Gore the God Butcher, played by Christian Bale in Thor Love and Thunder. And you're using MCU villains as a comparison to these brilliantly orchestrated villains. What about Zod in Man of Steel? You're talking utter tripe. Faced by good guys. But in practice, it just means Justice League's existing over CG Ed Grey Beast Guy. No reports to a different CG Grey Beast Guy, but it turns reports into yet another CG Grey Beast Guy. Now, I'm sorry, mate. You didn't see this movie, or you didn't understand this movie. You just decided, I'm not going to like this movie. That's up to you. You have the power to talk about it. That's fine. I have the power to talk about it here. And I'll save you some Googling here. You're not mishearing the dialogue. It's just that one of those grey CGI baddies is called Desaad, and the other is called Darkseid. There's a big difference. Desaad gives nuance, brilliant, and Darkseid is one of the best fucking DC supervillains, you idiot. Ridiculously similar names like that are the kind of clutter you take out of a movie, not deliberately back in. You just don't get it, do you? You just don't understand. You're not a DC fan. You don't get it. You don't understand these characters. You're an absolute idiot. By the way, are you impressed we made it this far before mentioning the N-word? Like, it or not Marvel set for superhero blockbuster. DC has been playing catch-up for a decade. Justice League tried to do in one film what the Avengers series unfolded over several years, and it just isn't the same. Guess what? Guess what? We wasn't trying to copy them. Snyder wasn't trying to copy them. In fact, in many instances, like Endgame, Snyder was copied by this Kevin Feige character who has no ideas of his own. His stuff was leaked to Feige, and Feige allegedly stole it. That's what I think anyway. And definitely in Captain America Civil War, that's the case. So please, let's talk about who was copying who. Warner Brothers and DC also do themselves no favours by telling a story that's so similar to the goings-on in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. My point exactly. Why do you think it's a similar story? Because Feige got that story leaked to him because he's not the talented person everybody thinks he is. So actually, you're opening up another can of worms there. The bickering heroes collecting magical alien artifacts is basically the same as Infinity War, yes, because Feige stole the idea. And Endgame and Darkseid is essentially Thanos without the character development. Hell, well, actually, there is a little bit of character development with him, but this was just the introduction of Darkseid. Again, you're missing 2 movies, thanks to people like you. Snyder even throws in the moment that seems to lift the Hulk's signature line, I'm always angry, from the first Avengers, from written and directed by one Joss Whedon. Ironically, I don't know what he's talking about. Basically a hater, but never mind. So at least after all the fuss and online battles, we can finally compare Snyder's and Whedon's versions, and we can officially confirm that no matter how great it seemed in fandom's fevered imagination, the Snyder Cut is every bit as much of a mess as the theatrical edit. Which versions you prefer is entirely up to you. That's right, Mr. Pundit. It is. I'm not going to make a judgment on whether the 2-hour or 4-hour version is better, but I will say this, at least one is over sooner. Yeah. Basically, these are the Marvel shills that have impacted and defended Kevin Feige's creative bankruptcy in over 20 films of MCU content. This is the kind of person that destroyed the Snyderverse, who poured poison over the Snyderverse because it was inventive. It was Snyder being inventive, not Feige. It was Feige taking Snyder's ideas and building something up. Poor Snyder wasn't ready for what this industry truly is when you're in the elite cauldron of it. But Snyder fought back, and we can still restore the Snyderverse. People like this are the very reason the industry is full of creatively bankrupt individuals. One of the biggest mistakes that Rolling Stone made with this Snyder hit piece, they mentioned Ray Fisher, and Ray is biting back. Ray Fisher slams Rolling Stone Zack Snyder's Justice League report updated. Ray Fisher slams the Rolling Stone Zack Snyder's Justice League report, disputing its claim he declined comment and pointing the writer's past error. by Grant Hermans of Screen Rant. This is interesting. Updated 7/19, 12:41 p.m. EST. Rolling Stone editor-in-chief Noah Chapman revealed emails that this team did reach out to his representatives. Update number 2, 7/19, 2:26 p.m. EST. Fisher shared screenshots of the email his team received, revealing a difference in deadlines presented. Now, this really is exposing what happened with that article. They lied about Ray and his representatives, and Ray is a very clever guy and he doesn't mess about. You can tell I don't proofread these articles, but this is interesting. While the story seemingly revealed a lot about the film's troubled production, Ray Fisher is slamming the Rolling Stones' Zack Snyder's Justice League report for a few major errors. Fisher starred in the alternate cut of the DC Extended Universe film as Victor Stone, a college athlete whose life was upended when he and his mom were in a car accident that took her life and nearly took his. Stone's father, Starlab scientist Silas Stone, would utilize the alien technology of the mother boxes to save Victor and cybernetically reconstructed him into the techno-enhanced being known as Cyborg. Fisher's tenure as Cyborg in the DCEU has been a point of infamy for the Warner Brothers comic book franchise, following Justice League's troubled production in which Joss Whedon took over as director from Zack Snyder after his departure due to creative differences and the loss of his daughter. Wow, well done Screen Rant for being factual there. Fisher would speak out against Whedon for his actions on set, against multiple studio heads for their reported enabling of the former Avengers director's behavior, sparking an investigation into the situation that has ultimately resulted in Fisher's departure from the franchise due to his frustrations over how his accusations were handled. As new details surface about Zack Snyder's Justice League in the DCEU's troubled development cycle, Fisher is remaining firm in his drive for the truth to come out. This week saw Rolling Stone and their senior writer, Tatiana Siegel, I love that name, publish, it sounds like a name of a witch, doesn't it? It does, Tatiana. Publish a report from Zack Snyder's Justice League in the fake social media accounts that fueled the release the Snyder Cut movement. But that's not true, is it now? Cyborg actor Ray Fisher took to his Twitter to slam the report, noting that neither he nor his team declined to comment on the story and calling out Siegel for an error made in a prior The Hollywood Reporter casting story. Well, this is interesting. Rolling Stone's editor-in-chief Noah Chapman later took to Twitter with screenshots of emails sent to Fisher's team asking for comment. Fisher later also took to responding with screenshots of the email his team received, which indicated a different deadline than the one Chapman's screenshot showed. See Fisher's reaction and Chapman's post below. Now, this is interesting. This basically means is that they gave a fake deadline on purpose so Ray Fisher couldn't respond. This proves again this is a hit piece and with coordination from Warner Brothers Pictures chairman Toby Emmerich. Ray Fisher, Rolling Stone and Tatiana Siegel 27 need to amend this article immediately. Neither myself nor anyone on my team ever declined to comment to Rolling Stone. Furthermore, this type of rumour mill reporting is offensive, dangerously and willfully evasive of fact. Accountability over entertainment. So very interesting. Exclusive waning reporter Tatiana Siegel 27 fails to overshadow digital release of Zack Snyder's Justice League with contrived hit piece. Warner Brothers mourns. Sources say reporters still butthurt after being called out on lies in 2021. Now this is interesting. Now here's a screenshot of an old situation. Zack Snyder never cut Kiersey Clemons from Justice League. Tatiana Siegel and THR, please fix this article immediately and check your sources. Wow, this is interesting. What does this say? That Tatiana Siegel is closely connected to Toby Emmerich and she's been working in close conjunction with him. This is about an article. Kiersey Clemons, the star in the Flash movie exclusive. Now, I'm assuming in that article she said Zack Snyder cut her out of the Justice League movie. She lied. obvious she's working in conjunction with Toby Emmerich. Well done, Ray Fisher. Again, you expose these people. This is brilliant. So that's amazing. Let's see if there's any more of this article left. Here we go. In the past 2 years since calling out Whedon for his abusive behaviour on set, Fisher has remained dedicated to telling his story about how studio execs mistreated the up-and-coming actor and calling for apologies from them, namely when further allegations against Whedon began to surface from cast and crew outside of Justice League. The actor also has criticised Warner Brothers for their lack of retroactive response to him and other people of colour working in the franchise, memorably calling out their Black History Month post highlighting Will Smith's Deadshot, Journey Smollett's Black Canary and Idris Elba's Bloodsport by asking for a proper apology instead for the month. More recently, Fisher reacted to Toby Emmerich stepping down as Warner Brothers chairman, expressing his hopes that we never see the likes of Toby Emmerich again. And I say, yes, say so all of us, and believing better days to be ahead. Given Fisher's openness regarding the situation, it comes as a surprise to learn that he was not reached out for comment for Rolling Stone's Zack Snyder's Justice League report, with the star having now called out both the publication and reporter for their seemingly malicious behaviour in writing up the story. It will be interesting to see whether they attempt to correct that by properly contacting the Cyborg actor to discuss the matter. Of course they won't. They don't want his comments. His comments are exposing and factual. And exposing and factual have nothing to do with what Tatiana Siegel did. She was removed from the Hollywood Reporter, probably because of that article, and now she's dumbing down over at Rolling Stone. That's interesting. Or if they will try and move on from it entirely, probably. Regardless of how the situation may progress, audiences can revisit Zack Snyder's Justice League, now available to purchase on digital platforms, as well as stream on HBO Max. Very, very interesting. Ray Fisher. Wow, I know we've exchanged blows in the past. You've blocked me on Twitter. But I absolutely support what you're doing here. This was brilliant. He absolutely exposed her with the Hollywood Reporter lie. Proof that she's in league with Toby Emmerich, by the way. And then she lied, and then her editor lied as well, that they're showing screenshots that they did send Fisher an email for comment. But because of the deadline, they lied about the deadline. They moved the deadline so he wouldn't have time to give a reaction. They did it on purpose so they could say he wasn't available for comment, to make him look like a liar, someone who's hiding and trying to run away. That is not the factual situation here, is it, everyone? Rolling Stone has been heavily exposed. So the damage they were trying to do with this piece is dead. It's brilliant. We win again. This is definitely one for Arrowverse superfan Scott Edwards, who I know subscribed to the channel and very kindly supports the channel, because this is huge. So Todd Helbing, the showrunner of Superman and Lois, has been very anti-Arrowverse. He and the other people involved in this show want nothing to do with Arrowverse. It was revealed in the finale that Superman and Lois is in another universe and is not on the same Earth as the rest of the Arrowverse shows. They've done this purposely so they can move away from Arrowverse, and now he's put doubt on any future crossovers with other Arrowverse shows and characters. This is his quote. It's interesting. With General Lane's speech there about Superman being the only hero, it might be a little tricky to do crossovers in the way that we've done them historically. I don't know what's going to happen. If there's an opportunity, it's a little tricky now to do all of this. But we'll see what happens. We're a different planet, a different Earth. The Superman that you saw in all the crossovers is not the same as the Superman on our planet. It's clearly a doppelganger. Part of how this all folds in the big picture with DC is ultimately a DC decision. I'm sure there'll be more clarity in the future, but as of now, we're a different Earth in the DC universe. That version of what we did is probably done because we don't have all of those characters anymore from those shows. All the actors are going to go on and do different projects, or life is going to make them busy, he said. It's hard to speculate other than they're still comic book shows. There are guests in comic book shows all the time. I don't know if we'll have exactly the same thing. it's hard to perceive what could happen in the superhero genre. So this is going to disappoint Arrowverse fans, but I did warn you when Superman and Lois was announced, this was them trying to move away from Arrowverse. When they cancelled all the Arrowverse shows, they knew it was done. The ratings were dropping, faster than a lead balloon. So this is the new era of DC superhero TV, and it's Stargirl, and it's Superman and Lois, with Doom Patrol still going strong as well, and Titans. Separate universes, standalone shows, and I think we're moving away, and I think the DCEU will go this way as well, maybe. I don't know what they're planning. It's going to be it's an integrated multiverse or what. I mean, you could have multiversal crossovers if you want, but it's pretty clear. As far as Todd Helbing's concerned, Superman and Lois is on its own planet, its own Earth, and it has nothing to do with anything else. Just like Henry Cavill's Superman has nothing to do with Arrowverse, and that just gives their characters room to breathe. I know the MCU started all this crossover malarkey, but by doing that, you don't give your characters and concept rooms to breathe. And I mean, surely, as fans of TV and film, you want great characterizations and storytelling, and you don't just want constant crossovers. I know you've been drip-fed this through your lives, but I think it's time to appreciate the art, to appreciate the storytelling and these characters. This has been Movies TV Mad. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. And wow, it's been another long video. I meant this to be shorter. It's going to take another age to upload. By now you've got it. I hope to see you again on the next show. Until we see each other again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.